Hello, and welcome to the Anime Explorations podcast. I'm Alex.
I'm Tora.
I'm David.
All right, and it is the month of November, which means, among other things, this is also the month that Komura-con is in Oregon. And I went this year. So that was fun. They put it this year.
As the con scene recovered.
Yeah.
Honestly, Komura-con was pretty decent this year.
Nice.
We didn't go because that was the weekend Luke was really sick.
Yeah, I did run into some of our other mutual friends at the convention.
I saw the pictures and I'm like, that's awesome.
So there had like 11,000 attendees at Komura-con this year. So we've got about half of the convention center and also the directly adjacent hotel. I actually spent a little bit of time at the hotel this year, for like checking out the viewing rooms and the Gunpla room. This year, took a few pictures of the entrance in the Gunpla competition. I think at this point, by the time this goes live, I will have had put pictures, photo galleries of my hall cosplay photos I took, the photos I managed to take of varying degrees of quality of the cosplay contest, and the Gunpla competition entrance. So those should be up on the blog for those who are interested in checking this out. I will put a link in the doobly-doo for those who are watching or listening to the podcast on places other than the blog. But we also had our first Japanese anime voice actress guest this year. We've had Japanese industry guests. We've had Studio Trigger's been a recurring guest at the convention. We had Yoshitaka Amano one year. But this year we had Kana Ueda, who is probably best known at this point for being the voice of Rin from the Fate franchise at the convention. She did a couple Q&A panels and an autograph signing, so I got some stuff signed.
Nice.
Also, like, from all the things I've heard negatively about about strictly Q&A audience panels, like I have appreciated that generally Komura-con Q&A panels are generally well done. I will say, in terms of like the of our audience behavior and the questions being asked and that sort of thing.
That's good.
Yep.
Nice. Sounds like a fun time.
Indeed, it was. Definitely looking forward to next year. It's going to be a couple weeks earlier, still in November, but it's going to be like weekend of the 4th or so, like the first weekend in November. So it's not as much of a case of having the convention be literally the weekend before Thanksgiving.
Better to space it out a little bit. Yeah.
All right. So as far as stuff watching, you're still watching Jujutsu Kaisen?
Yeah, got through everything that's been released, which I think is 17 episodes into the second season. I've watched so much anime for the past few weeks because my computer has been monopolized by someone else playing Baldur's Gate 3.
It was me!
Because apparently it's a little too big to go onto her little MacBook, so she's been using my computer. So I'm like, so I just parked myself on Crunchyroll, and I'm like, I've got so many things on my watch list.
What have you gone through?
I've fully caught up on all 3 seasons of Rising of the Shield Hero. Went through Mushoku Tensei or Mushoku Tensei?
Mushoku Tensei is how I've heard it pronounced.
Okay, yeah. I'm not sure. Yeah, just a bunch of things. Finally finished up Space Battleship Yamato.
Old school. Love it.
No, the newer one.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The old school one is not available for streaming anywhere. The DVD box sets for the original Star Blazers Used are getting to a more reasonable price, and by more reasonable, I mean $50 for a season as opposed to $100 for a season, with the bare bones release with no extras, which is what it was going for before.
Yeah.
Are they actually released by season, though, as opposed to here's 4 to 6 episodes
So
per disc?
These were released by season. Like, it was like, here's the Iskandar arc, here's the Comet Empire arc.
Kind of nice.
Which is basically like about one season. Yeah. But again, it was like $100 each back in the day. No bonus features, none of that stuff. So, and this is again strictly the Star Blazers versions with the relevant adjustments. Like, oh, there are no dead people in this tank. Nobody actually dies ever. No, because this is 1970s television.
No.
1970s brought over to the U.S. for children's consumption.
Yep. We are not.
Star Blazers was pre-Robotech, wasn't it?
That is correct. It was Star Blazers. Then Robotech came later, and Robotech was the one like, okay, no, we're actually gonna kill characters off, and keep them killed off if they're died in the source material, kind of thing. We're gonna trust our audiences to respect that.
Yeah, like when dealing with Robotech, I am genuinely staggered by how faithful they made it to all 3 series they smooshed together.
Very rare.
Not to say I don't hate Harmony Gold and their just iron grip on distribution with a fiery passion, but in the 80s, Carl Masick did a really damn good job.
And it says a lot that, like, when Carl Masick did eventually end up parting ways with Harmony Gold and went and did Streamline Pictures and directed lots of other equally faithful dubs for shows that we now remember fondly, or shows and movies that we now remember fondly, like the original Akira dub.
Mm-hmm.
So we might as well get into
yelling at each other across the city.
Tetsuo!
Oh, speaking of which, actually, before I forget, one tie-in, they did announce one of their guests of honor for next year, and it is going to be Johnny Young Bosch, who is on the Pioneer Akira dub.
Johnny Young Bosch, amongst many, many other things.
Oh yes, he is an incredibly prolific actor. Like he's Bash the Stampede in both the original and the new series. So much stuff. We're going to get to talk about him in Fate Zero at some point, with him getting wonderfully cast against type in that series.
I remember the first thing I saw him in, which was Power Rangers.
Yep.
He was the second Black Ranger. And honestly, he did a fine job. He's returned to the franchise a couple of times.
And he's just
I have nothing but great things to say about Johnny Young Bosch. From everything I know, he's a wonderful person.
Absolutely. I am definitely, I normally don't do voice actor, dub actor panels at conventions. But I think if I can get in to see Johnny Young Bosch and he's not scheduled opposite another thing I want to go to, I'm definitely going to try to make some of his panels at KimuraCon next year. Might even go get some stuff signed.
This is kind of off topic, but I just want to quickly shout out to the Baldur's Gate 3 voice actors. They've been really active on TikTok and other social media, and they all seem like fantastic people. I would hang out with them. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. Alright, so with that, let's get into our anime for the month. Tsukihime.
Is it officially just Tsukihime, or is it officially
It's Lunar Legend Tsukihime?
Yep.
Yes.
If you want to get really nitpicky with the subtitles, then you get into Lunar Legend Tsukihime, Blue Glass Moon Under the Crimson Air. But then we start getting into light novel title length, and that's just silly.
Right.
Totally different Moon Princess than Sailor Moon.
Absolutely.
We watched this on DVD, and it had been a while since I watched an anime on DVD. It had that whole like upcoming releases preview that you can't skip before you get to the venue. That just took me back, man.
Yes, this.
Remember when that was the only way to watch?
This is not available for streaming on any.
Actually, it is. It is on High Dive.
Oh, it is on High Dive. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was looking to see if it was in print physically, and it is sadly not in print physically, but High Dive still has streaming rights.
Okay, that is awesome. Yeah, we watched the old mid-2000s DVD release. We actually watched it subbed this time. Usually we watch dubbed. Mainly because I was a little hesitant to subject myself to an early 2000s dub.
All been there and been burned.
It's probably fine, but I didn't really want to risk it for 12 straight episodes.
I caught a bit of it, because what will sometimes happen on the High Dive player, which is for all of the AMC networks money that they have to throw at it, is still a bit iffy in some respects, and sometimes it will default when starting up or resuming an episode to the dub track, so I'd catch bits of it here and there. And what I heard was fine. I mean, this is an ADV dub, so it has the actresses and actors that you expect with an ADV dub. There's a few big names in there. Wendy Lee is on in the cast as Ciel, but otherwise it's like Michelle Ruff, it's Steve Cannon. Like, if you've listened to ADV dubs in the mid 2000s, you have heard these actors before.
Yeah.
So, this was based on the first visual novel put out by Type Moon, written by Kinoko Nasu, which is why we're doing this for the month of Nasuvember.
Woo!
And this, basically their inaugural title. Unlike a lot of other visual novels that came out from Type Moon, this one, until very recently, didn't get like a big re-release on consoles with the adult material stripped out and that sort of thing. So this was strictly a anime adaptation of what at this point was an eroge. And that said, they did remove the majority of the explicit and sexual material from the work. And generally, that aspect of it worked fairly well. There is the giant elephant in the room, which is the game in question has 5 full routes, which have about as much plot material as like a full route for like one of the Fate Stay Night routes. And this is a 12 episode series, as we have mentioned earlier. So, yeah.
So there was a lot of material that was not able to make it in. And just as a heads up, I personally have not read this visual novel. It's on my list. I've got it available. I just need to, put in the time to actually read
your
it.
Computer back from me.
I mean, it's one of those things where this is going to take me a while, so I want to have, I've had the files to read it for 8-ish years now, but it's just a time investment.
Yeah.
I have not been able to give myself.
The good news is there's a remake coming out, which is being done for consoles as well as PC, so it has the sexually explicit material, or some of that stripped out. The porny material stripped out. And that's apparently due to come out in English next year in the summer sometime.
Awesome.
I pre-ordered the Switch version because I pre-ordered the Switch because I got the Switch version of Witch on the Holy Night, and from a text size standpoint and just a general vibe standpoint, or not vibe, but portability and playability standpoint, the Switch works well, I think, for visual novels. Same with the Steam Deck in this regard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll probably be picking up that way. There is a browser. Somebody managed to adapt the game to play in a web browser, which might actually be a good way to do it. Because as my prep for this, there's a podcast which I'll link to in the show notes called Fate Moon Archive, which is a retrospective of the entire Nasu-Verse franchise and that sort of thing. And they're doing hyper in-depth let's plays of or playthroughs and discussions of like the games where they will split a route over 3 episodes, each one like 3 to 5 hours long. So I was not able to make it through all of their discussions of the game just because I didn't have enough time to listen to all that podcast, but I got through most of it. And I bring this up and I bring up the browser thing. So the game the original game came out in 2000. And it was designed for monitors of the year 2000 and the screen resolutions of the time. So it is like 680 by 480 or something like that windowed, and in a 4:3 ratio. And then if you maximize it for your 4K, for your modern 21st century 4K 16:9 monitor, it's not gonna look great. But there is the web version, which apparently just came out like a month ago, from what I saw and found on Reddit. So that might be a way to, if you're going to play the game, that might be a decent way to do it. So other than that, I'm going in. What was your so aside from having the game around for a while, what other familiarity did you have with the anime by reputation?
My younger sibling is really into Melty Blood. Has done tournaments on that. So I've played a couple of the Melty Blood games, so that's kind of as close to my familiarity. Like, I had no idea what the storyline was. I knew it involved vampires, but
I had nothing. I kept wanting to call Ark Nero and other difficulties, but I went in kind of open-minded because I wasn't really. I don't know. I had no expectations, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
But I will say, watching through it, I will say it definitely feels like the middle step between Garden of Sinners and Fate Stay Night.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I have a grudging admiration, actually, for how they adapted it. Because I went in knowing it was from a visual novel, but I don't know the visual novel. I don't know the story. Right up until the final episode, we were looking at each other like, where is this going? Like, how are they gonna resolve this in any kind of satisfying way? They do actually stick the ending, in my opinion. You spend most of the series just wondering what the heck is going on and guessing, like, who's Vroa? What is up with this family? You just have so many questions. And then it ties it up, and it has this kind of like nice, like sort of semi-tragic ending that I actually kind of appreciated. So they took, let's say, a metric truckload of plot, and they did manage to tell a compelling story with it in just 12 episodes, but it is obvious that there's a lot of information that you don't get.
Yeah, like there's a ton of answers, probably, that came up in the other routes, but I don't know how faithful an adaptation of it is, as I mentioned, but I will say it is a successful adaptation, because it tells a story well. It tells a complete story. Obviously, there's a lot of little extra things you can like, oh, I wonder, but nothing that like seriously detracts from the story as a whole. So it was successful, which up until the last couple episodes, I was not certain it would be.
Yeah, right up until the end, I was like, where's this going? Where's this going? Where is this going? There are a few things that could have been adapted a little better. The plot line with the childhood friend girl character is important for 2 episodes, and then you really never hear about her again, except for that one time they go to the amusement park.
Yep. Satsuki?
Yeah.
You never get a satisfactory answer as to what's up with Akiha in the anime. I think that's like the one thing.
I don't know. I thought that was pretty clear.
How is it clear? Like, is she a vampire or what? What is her deal?
She's a descendant of a vampire.
I don't think they ever say that.
No, they did.
No.
They mentioned that, that basically their descendants, the Tono family, are descendants of Roa.
They never said that.
They did.
No.
Yeah. There's the monster. There's the monster blood, and that's the reason Roa came to the Tonos, is because he's basically followed that line.
What?
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure they did.
They did.
They explained it.
One line.
Yeah, they explained it a little bit in a single line of dialogue, which is so from what I picked up from the podcast, and took from that going into this anime, which admittedly, again, that was probably 12 times. Because I got through 4 routes. That's 12 times 4. That's 48 hours of listening. More or less. Anyway, that's way too much listening. Too much to just a single podcast to do for homework for an anime. That I could really recommend. They basically went through 4 routes into this anime, covering some of CL's route, some of Arkuid's route, some of Akiha's route. No, because it was just 3. So CL, Akiha, and Arkuid's routes basically adapted here. Hisui and Kohaku's routes are kind of brushed over. They don't really get too much into them.
Yes, those 2, the maids. I want to know more about them.
There's clearly something going on there that we weren't privy to. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that was true of a lot of everything.
Yeah, Seal. Okay. No, I get it. Oh, okay. Now you're definitely doing that goth alternative. Look with the short black dress and a lot of tattoos.
Seal's sudden between scenes costume change. We were like, wait, when did this happen?
I should just realize. Wait, Shiki isn't into the nun look. What does he like?
Let's try goth the
vampire god? God is like vampire? Okay, we're gonna do this. Wait, did you get the tattoos, girl? I guess you've always been very covered up, so they could have been under there the whole time, but
okay, so the fact that CL is alive at the end of the show means that the cycle will repeat, right? Because she can't die as long as Ro is still alive, so he's just going to regenerate into a new body, and it's going to happen again, right?
Or I'm not clear if it's regenerate or actually straight reincarnate.
So, this is one of the things that gets explained better in the game.
Unsurprisingly.
So in the game, it's when CL's aging froze from when she was previously possessed by the body hopping antagonist of Roa, and with his defeat, she will now age normally.
Okay.
So she's still like a 20-something. She's like a 20-year-old in a 18-year-old's body, but now she just no longer has the regeneration and will age normally. And from the
everyone's ages was very confusing for me.
And then the implication is also that Shiki got Roa in his death point.
Yes.
And so that actually permanently destroyed Roa because the mythic eyes of death perception can kill anything, even at the conceptual level. Well, they mentioned this briefly in passing, even at the conceptual level.
Yeah,
did Roa have mystic eyes of death perception as well, or no? Because it was unclear.
He had a lesser version of it, because as Shiki pointed out in the end, it's you can see the lines on people, but Shiki could see the lines on everything. And I actually was familiar with the Mystic Eyes of Death Perception thanks to Garden of Sinners.
Yep.
Because its protagonist has the same power.
Yep.
Doesn't this come up in, oh gosh, I'm blanking on the name of it, but the Clock Tower show.
Yes. Yeah, Mystic Eyes in
Elmaloy Case Files.
Elmaloy's Case Files, yes.
Yeah, so...
Not Death Perception, but yeah, Mystic Eyes.
Mystic Eyes in general. Like, yeah, to mention, like, this is not the first thing that, or Tsukihime is not the first thing that Nasu had came out with. He had written the novels for Garden of Sinners and a novel version of Witch on the Holy Night first, but like he hadn't like properly published Witch on the Holy Night, and Garden of Sinners was just published as basically like small press independent novel kind of thing at Comic-Cats. So like this is, you could kind of see this as being a polishing of the concept of a polishing of a bunch of concepts coming to this game. Mm-hmm. Of course, those will probably get polished further when we get to the anime adaptation of Garden of Sinners, but that's for a later time, possibly.
Maybe next Nasuvember.
Indeed.
So I have a few things I wanted to mention since I came into this with no expectations, right? And you mentioned that a lot of the, the ecchi stuff, the porn stuff had been cut. I would say pretty much everything was cut, except for one scene where they are clearly naked in bed together.
One scene that could have been slid into
and that was actually
American television.
I was actually surprised to see that. You don't usually get that in anime, like any hint of intimacy. It's almost like 1920s silent film code or whatever. So for me, it was like there was almost no ecchi content whatsoever. And I also was really interested in Shiki himself, in the protagonist, because it's actually kind of refreshing to have a protagonist who is surrounded by potential love interests, but he is clearly more focused on the weird supernatural shit going on around him, as you probably should be, right? Like, he seems just oblivious most of the time.
So, from what I picked up from the podcast, in the game, it is exclusively from Shiki's point of view, and he serves as an internal narrator. So we have full awareness of what he's thinking, and so some of this does get kind of male gazy or pervy or that sort of thing with him. Think, oh yeah, I think Hisui is really cute. Or that sort of thing. Also, you mentioned that we don't get that much plot about Satsuki. That is also a problem with the game. Like, she kind of disappears partway through the first half of the first couple arcs of the game, and in the second couple, the game's divided into two halves: the front half and back half. The front half is like everything with Ciel and Arcoid. And then everything in the back half is the stuff with Akiha, Hisui, and Kohaku. And Ciel shows up in the back half, but Arcoid does not. And Satsuki shows up a bit in the back half, where she turns out having been turned into a vampire.
It almost, like, her portrayal in the anime almost feels obligatory. Like, here is the obligatory, cute childhood best friend who is into you. Okay, she's here, and now we're gonna move on to the more interesting characters. You know what I mean?
Yep. Whereas in the
I was gonna say, it's one of those things where I can tell that because these you've got the normal. Basically the mundane friends that sort of sit as a grounding and are establishing the world as our young protagonist knows it. There was a group of people just like that for Shiro and Fate Stay Night. These are the people that he's lived his life with, that he's known friends. And then there's like the new sudden influences that are changing the worldview.
Right.
And then Shiki's sort of honestly rejection of her at the very end of the show, kind of to me was more of his establishing that he's not going to go back to that normal lifestyle. He's going to continue in this sort of more arcane worldview.
Yeah.
Um.
That I thought that was an interesting cap to the show. Actually, that's one of the last things we get, and it is implied that he rejects her love confession, right? So we don't have any time with her to determine like what finally gives her the courage to go do that. We get his male best friend just kind of like, well, that's how it is.
Yep.
But yeah, I do kind of like that as a capstone to the story that the anime told, because in the anime he was very much with Arcoweed, right? He was following her route pretty much. Like,
I'm sorry, I can't be with you. My girlfriend turned into the moon.
That's rough, buddy.
Yeah,
classic girlfriend turning into the moon situation.
I mean, like as it happens. Like episode 7 I will say, the episode where they go to the amusement park. That is completely new for the anime. And what I think particularly like about that, again, from what I picked up from the podcast, is like in the original version, like Ciel and Arcoweed meet each other a bunch. Ciel and Akiha meet each other like a couple times. I have like 1 or 2 scenes together, but you don't really get like all like these characters like spending a significant chunk of time together. And it's very much if we didn't have the impending looming threat of the vampire murder going on in the background, this is the kind of slice of life, semi-harem romantic comedy shenanigans that we could be getting.
That was really a standout episode.
I was going to say, I really love that episode because of the way it was very much framed of there's these 4 female characters, Ciel, Akiha, Arcoweed, and Satsuki. And just all of them are vying for Shiki's attention. And it really is, and each of them are a very different sort of worldview. There's the longtime friend, there's the, pretty upperclassman, there's the, why is the sister romantically involved here? This is just very confusing.
Adopted.
At the time, we didn't know that she was...
Yeah. At the time, we didn't know she was he was adopted.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the foundation of storytelling, right? You get different characters with different wants and desires, or the same want and desire, but there's only one thing they can get. Put them together, drama happens.
I really liked it because of the way she was subdued throughout this whole thing. And, he's trying not to say no to anyone.
That sounds pretty true to life.
Yeah. And it's very much of, it's like, which path in life are you going to take? This is, which future do you want? So, yeah, I really loved that episode. I think, subsequent watchings are going to make it even better.
Yeah, we agreed to go to the amusement park, even though I'm tracking a serial killer. All right, let's go.
I think
we killed the serial killer. Actually, that wasn't the serial killer. Who did we murder then?
Oh, God.
Oh, that was just an assassin. Why was there an assassin? Who was just at the places where the murderer was doing stuff?
Well, and I like how all of them are warning Shiki off of all the 3 others. And they all think they have his best interest at heart, right?
Well, Satsuki wasn't really warning them off the others. She wasn't saying don't go with him. She was saying I want to keep you for me. Which I think is interesting, but also very much more of a, it is that childhood, friend thing, just as she was. It wasn't, not denying, she wasn't trying to deny him stuff. She was trying to, keep a piece of him for herself. And
don't change too much with these new weirdos you're hanging out with.
Yeah.
And it helped with that sequence that Satsuki came across as being the adult in the room in a lot of respects.
Oh God,
definitely.
yes.
Yes.
She is the youngest one there, and she is the adult.
Agreed. So, yeah. But at one point, I think David and I looked at each other. We were like, "Why this guy?" Like, this is kind of a case of your in the visual novel. The main character is like you're supposed to be able to immerse yourself in them. So then when they translate it to the show, there are points where it doesn't seem like they have much of a personality, and it just kind of beggars belief that all these people are interested in them. Although I think in the last few episodes, they really
You got to see
helped his portrayal quite a lot.
Yeah, you got to see some of Shiki's actual personality.
Yeah.
Because, like, up to this... Like, for the first half of the show, he seems like he's suffering from PTSD. Like, he is that very subdued, sort of, very... almost hesitant about things. Like, he seems to be almost predicting a negative reaction to most things that he does, so he just tries to be quiet and go through with it.
I think that's a lot of teenagers, honestly.
Yes.
But, what was I going to say about that?
No riz.
What? No Riz? Guy has no Riz. Yeah. Well, sometimes he comes off as an interesting character, but I think the majority of the show, when it's taking its time, he comes off as like, oh, I'm so cool. I'm always thinking about more important things, and the women find that so attractive. And I kind of got bored of that, after an episode or two. But and then Arc was just a little bit manic pixie dream girl, just for me.
Yeah, this is very clearly a woman who does not know how to interact with people. And, when you find out she's an 800-year-old vampire who sleeps until she needs to kill somebody.
I feel like we could have got more of her backstory earlier.
Yeah.
To help understand her a little bit more.
Yeah.
Although I will say it does hit when CL asks Shiki, why are you going to go after her? And he's like, her life is just so sad and she's going to die alone. And it's like, yes, that does kind of hit, like...
Yeah, I will say that one of the weak points of the show is the fact that most of the backstory is handled via exposition in the penultimate episode. And it's just CL telling Shiki what the hell has been going on.
And then CL's like, oh, guess that story had the opposite effect I wanted. And it's like,
yeah.
What did you think was going to happen here?
No, you don't understand. You can't over her. She is a terrible vampire.
She was...
No, you understand. She has had the saddest, most tragic life. You need to say, wait, I need to give that woman a hug.
Exactly. God damn, CL.
It's like, okay, well, guess I gotta go goth girl then.
Yeah. So I think I do have some pacing issues. I do not have vibe issues. The vibes of the show are great. You're always wondering what the heck is going on, and it's kind of unsettling and mysterious, and yeah.
I will say, it definitely did that thing that Nasu loves. It's not a whodunit, it's a whydunit. Like, you kind of know what's going on to an extent, but you have no idea why anyone's doing that. It's like, you know who's doing what, you don't know why.
There's just this long stretch in the middle, you just gotta kind of stick out. And I think that's why the amusement park episode was so standout, was because it was different from that. And the character drama was clear and well-defined, and you weren't just wondering, what is happening? Like, seriously, right up till the last episode, I was like, what is happening?
It felt like a good dry run for some of the comedy elements that we get for Carnival Phantasm.
Yes.
In the sense of, hey, what if we just did a rom-com and we just a sitcom plot? We'll just do a sitcom plot where, all of the possible romantic interests and the main character are at the same place at once, and sparks fly. or the sitcom arch nemesis and the main character and the sitcom arch nemesis are at the same place at once, and sparks fly. Like you could see potentially CL and Arcoid on like Arcoid meeting CL in the street and having that sort of "Hello, Newman" response to each other.
Yeah.
Hello, CL.
It's interesting looking at this show in comparison to Fate Stay Night's anime adaptations, because it does, Tsukihime does contain the seeds of a lot of what then gets put into Fate Stay Night. But I do feel Fate Stay Night is superior.
I think to a degree, like, we'll eventually get into this one in more in depth and talk about Fate, but I think that Nasu learned a lot from Tsukihime, both in terms of the game and in terms of and other studios in terms of the animation, in the sense of Tsukihime, again, 5 routes, each one full-length routes, and I can legitimately see Nasu coming out of that going, I can't write that much crap again for one game. Or the character designer who does all the art for the games, Takashi Takuchi, going, Nasu, you're my good friend, so I have to tell you, I can't draw that much crap for a game.
Too much
for a game. Let's just have it, or split. I can't do 2.5 rounds. You can round up. You can do 3 rounds, but we just
3 rounds. One of which has 2 endings, which are very similar.
Yep.
It's easy to get carried away. I know this from my D&D world building. You're like, wouldn't it be cool if? And then before you know it, you've written 20 pages.
Yeah.
Oh, you can stop at 20.
And then
great. Now I have to do that.
And of course, the players don't even do that thing that leads to that.
I was just trying to create a nice little town that accidentally created economics for half a continent.
It's true. It's true.
The Pegasus trade was going to be so important to this little village.
All this to say, I feel you, Nasu.
I do definitely get the sense, like, also from this, when it comes to like later anime adaptations, like rather than trying to do it all, we should just like focus on one route. Also, there's so much plot here. We need to try and get like a second core and to go for 24 rather than try to shove it all into 12. Because like that is like the ultimate kill. Like, even if we just focused on one route with the 12 episode series, you'd still have that problem of trying to shove a ton of plot, an actual metric ton of plot, into a 10-pound bag.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fate comes off better because there's so much more combat in it also, that it keeps things moving. Tsukihime, there are these long stretches where not a lot is happening plot-wise, and you're kind of just left like, it just brings up more questions, and so your list of what is going on here keeps growing, and then all the answers get doled out right at the end, right? And I think it's better to do it more incrementally.
I mean, even Fate sort of had the backstory introduced as exposition via Kotomine, the priest. But that was handled at the beginning.
At least you go in with a base level.
It's like, okay, it's the world. Oh, shit! Legends are fighting! Why? Here's why. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I'm gonna have to fight, aren't I? Unless you want a bad end, sure, yes, you will have to fight.
But I mean, obviously, they did learn a lot from this anime adaptation, because the Fate anime adaptations are really strong. Tsukihime obviously made with kind of a standard anime budget. The animation isn't anything spectacular. There are some points where the character's feet become teeny tiny, non-existent.
Hey, we all have our
Liefeld moments. There are some moments where the face models are just slightly, like,
How long is your face supposed to be?
off. And I mean, generally it looks fine, but it doesn't look amazing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this is JC staff, so they have done better, and they would by this point they would do better later. But this does give this different sense of like we're not sure if we're like how much egg game we're doing on this, how invested we are personally. Because I think it's the other thing that helps the other ones. It's like particularly once you get to the UFO table adaptations, where UFO table's like, yes, we are big fans of Nasu and his stuff, so we're gonna
They go all out.
Yeah, we are going.
Also, UFO table, UFO-table.
I thought it was ufotable.
I think that's just the way I like
I
to
just want
pronounce
to
it
say
because
that
it's
way.
fun to say that way.
Yep.
But they also show, like, they adapted the Unlimited Blade Works and then also Fate Zero. And